everybody. This is Loose Canons with Reuben, Patrick, and Basil, and we're going to be discussing Johnny Guitar today, directed by Nicholas Ray. When was it released?
It was released in 1954.
Whoa.
1954. Starring some people.
Joan Crawford, Sterling Hayden.
Joan Crawford, Sterling Hayden, and Mercedes McCambridge.
Alright, so I guess initial thoughts. What did everybody think of Johnny Guitar? And thumbs up, thumbs down since.
I
liked it.
Yeah, definitely give it a thumbs up.
I liked it too. It'll be interesting when we get to a movie that any of us strongly dislike, because I don't think we've hit that yet. It's just been either okay or enjoyed it.
I don't know. I think I think that may happen soon, knowing what is coming up on our slate. So
exciting. Exciting times in Loose Cannons world.
Yeah. So, what do we want to start off talking about? Do we want to? Because I know we got for Code Unknown, we got really technical really fast. And do we want to actually go over the plot, like do a summary of what the film is actually about, just so the people out there?
Sure.
Okay.
You want to do that, Patrick?
Yeah, I'll do it. Well, the plot basically starts off where this cowboy rides into town. He's got a guitar strapped to his back, and he is the titular Johnny Guitar, we find out. And he's been asked to come to this, I guess it's a gambling hall out in the
saloon / casino.
Yeah. And he's been asked to come there by the owner of the gambling hall, Vienna. That's Joan Crawford's character. And she's basically in kind of a land dispute with the rest of the locals. Specifically Mercedes McCambridge's character, Emma Small, and who is Mr. McIvers, his name is Ward Bond. That's the actor that plays him, and they are sort of spearheading a movement to kind of oust Vienna from the area, so that she can't collect a lot of money when the railroad comes through there. Or is she? I think she's actually wanting to build up a town around there. They kind of want to own the area to sell it to the railroad.
It's a combination economic, personal desires to oust her. Mercedes is jealous of the fact that the dancing guy,
the
dancing kid likes Vienna more than Emma, so there's a personal element to it, and then the townspeople think that she's probably going to have too much power and too much money if she's still there when the railroad comes through, and that she'll be able to have too much control and too much money in the town.
Right, and we should also mention that the dancing kid is actually the head of kind of a gang who may or may not be outlaws. We do know that they have sort of like a silver mining operation in town, but they
that's a lie. They say that that's the thing that they've been saying.
I thought that they did actually have one, but it had kind of dried up on them.
Yeah, I think they talk about when they get back to their thing that they actually are miners. They just they had some money from the mine, but then
it had since dried up.
They ran out of.
Okay, I don't remember the exact line, so I may have just read it differently than you guys, but they said something like, that's not going to last much longer, and I guess I read that as people weren't going to buy the silver mining thing as a legitimate excuse for very much longer, as opposed to the mine itself was not going to produce silver much longer.
Well, that's that's a good question to bring up, because I don't know. I would have to either watch it again or just look at the script to see what the exact words are to, I guess, define whether or not they did actually have a silver mine operation. I assume that they did, and that they had just run out of silver and they weren't going to be able to make any more money off of that. But it did seem... go ahead, Basil.
I was going to say that, I think it is that they have a mine, because the kid is... part of the thing when they decide to rob the bank is that the kid is like, everybody thinks that we're outlaws anyway, and they're gonna hang us no matter what we do, so we might as well be outlaws for real and rob this bank and then give them a reason to hang us instead of being hung for false pretenses.
Yeah,
which to me implied
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't mean that they have a silver mine, though.
Well, but it does mean that they're not
They're not
bandits who
outlaws.
are robbing the stagecoaches. Like,
Yeah.
so they have to have money somehow.
They could be again, when he said that they're going to hang us for this thing that we didn't do. But they could still be outlaws doing other things.
It is entirely possible, I suppose.
I didn't feel like that element of them was clear. Because they all agree to it, like, pretty quickly. I feel like they have some history of illegal activities.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And
although everyone in the movie agrees to killing people pretty quickly, it seems that...
whether by legal or illegal means.
Right. Everyone's pretty anxious to shoot someone, it seems like.
But yeah, we should, I guess, say that the whole situation sort of comes to a head when the Dancing Kids crew does decide to rob the bank on the...
You skipped a plot point.
What was the other plot point?
So, someone kills Emma Small's brother when they're robbing a stagecoach,
right.
And she shows up, and that's sort of when things start to go bad. She thinks that it's the kid and Vienna together. Well, either she thinks it is, or they're a convenient scapegoat to drive a wedge for her own feelings. She thinks that, and it's never revealed who actually did it, who killed her brother and robbed that stagecoach, and that's when the kid and the gang decide to rob the bank, as Basil was saying. If they think we're outlaws, we're going to act like outlaws. Okay, and that's where you were.
And so they rob the bank on the morning of the funeral of Emma's brother, whose name is Leonard, I believe, Leonard Small. Then the town's basically just out to get them. But I'm trying to remember what... Oh, they try and ride out of town through the pass, and there's been... We've seen from the very beginning of the movie, there's been, like, dynamiting going on because they're bringing the railroad through. And so they're dynamiting the pass, and the pass gets closed by all the explosions before they can get out of town. And I think Turkey gets hurt in the process of them trying to get out of town, and so they have to double back and go back to where all the people are that are coming after them. And
Turkey tries to hide at Vienna's.
Right, Turkey gets wounded and goes to try and hide at Vienna's. And the townspeople, Emma kind of whips them up and tells them, Vienna's helping them. She was, because she goes to the bank to withdraw her money conveniently on the same morning that the other group comes to rob the bank, and so they think that she had something to do with it. And
she's withdrawing her money because she's going to leave town, by the way, because she's in love with Johnny Guitar, and they're going to run away to someplace more stable.
And so Emma sort of brings this whole posse into Vienna's saloon, and there's kind of a standoff between them, and Turkey kind of falls out of his hiding place, and all hell breaks loose, and they're gonna string up Turkey and Vienna for Turkey for robbing the bank and Vienna for helping them. And Emma actually burns down the saloon, and Turkey gets hung, but just before they can hang Vienna, Johnny Guitar shows up, saves her, and then they sort of head back to the Dancing Kids hideout, and there's a climactic showdown. I guess I shouldn't reveal everything that happens in the movie, but I should say that
there's no worry about spoilers with this.
I mean, I would say...
Yeah, there is a climactic showdown between Vienna and Emma. In the process of that, I think everybody in the gang in the Dancing Kids gang gets killed.
Turkey's killed by the mob.
Right, Turkey's killed by the mob. The other guy,
the sick guy, I can't remember his name, is killed by
Mr.
Corey's killed by the one who tries to sell them out. Because Corey won't go with him. Because Emma says all she wants is the kid. Yeah, Ernest Borgnine. He literally stabs him in the back. That kills him. Then Johnny Guitar kills Ernest Borgnine before he can kill the kid, and then Emma kills the kid
right between the eyes.
She actually I don't know if this was intentional. There's two things that in future movies that I've seen and enjoyed could be references. Oh, well, one of them definitely is. But where he's shot, right in the head, is where the little girl is shot in Assault on Precinct 13.
Oh.
And it looks very similar. The like little red hole in the center of his head. And Leonard Smalls, I didn't, until you mentioned his name, I didn't pick up on it, is the name of the bounty hunter in Raising Arizona.
Yeah, I was thinking about that last night. I was like, I was really hung up on that name. I was really glad that there was a villain whose name is Emma Small, which sounds like the most like innocent, like non-threatening name ever, but she's really the most bloodthirsty one in the whole film. And I remembered seeing, because it says on the front of the bank, it has his name, Leonard Small, and I was like, that's got to be what they're referencing in Raising Arizona.
Yeah. Well, John Carpenter and the Coen brothers are both reference-y type people. John Carpenter, well known for his love of Howard Hawks. Assault on Precinct 13 is, essentially a remake of Rio Bravo, so the idea that there might be Johnny Guitar references in it, not very surprising. And Coen brothers, more subtle Quentin Tarantino, in that they have tons of references, but they don't really show them off as much, usually. Mm-hmm. There's Dr. Strangelove references in Raising Arizona too, and Night of the Hunter references, and so it's a very reference-y film.
And apparently some, I guess, kind of outside trivia, Joan Crawford and Mercedes McCambridge apparently were fighting each other off camera as well as on camera, so their hatred of one another does seem particularly intense, and I guess that there is a good reason behind that.
They had great hate chemistry.
Yeah. I guess we should, this is, I guess, firmly in the Western genre, since it's, it's all cowboys and desert and gunfights, but I guess we should talk about, what differentiates it from other Westerns, because it is a very different kind of Western, especially in the way that it's, I guess, the way that it's shot, certainly, and the way that the character interactions happen.
We watched that short thing. There was a special feature on the DVD of Martin Scorsese talking about the film, and apparently the reaction at the time was not good to Johnny Guitar, and apparently part of the reason was that I guess it differentiated from Westerns so strongly, but to me it wasn't super clear on how it differentiated from Westerns, other than the fact that the woman was kind of the protagonist of the film. Patrick and I both noted that the movie is called Johnny Guitar, but really it's about Vienna, and she gets the big climactic gun battle at the end. But other than that, it wasn't, maybe someone else can fill me in, why audiences were so confused by this. I guess maybe the acting a little bit too was, more Shakespearean than you would expect from a Western.
One thing I actually thought, just because I've been thinking about this a lot from talking about it somewhat recently, was that a lot of Westerns, sort of the idea behind them is kind of a struggle between civilization and encroaching chaos. A lot of Westerns have sort of the plot that there's a small town and there's kind of bandits and things, kind of the wilderness is around the town, and some protagonist has to come into town and sort of save the town from that chaos, and then usually the protagonist will leave after that, but
leave or be killed. Right.
But that this movie sort of differentiates from that in the sense that the townspeople are the villains, and they're kind of fighting off encroaching civilization. Like Joan Crawford represents bringing the railroad and bringing more people to the town and bringing this new way of life, and they don't want that. They're kind of no, we want to just have our ranches and not be a part of that. And so I think that maybe that could be what off-put audiences because it's like different. You know, Johnny Guitar rides into town, but he doesn't ride into town to like save the townspeople. He rides in to like fight them off instead.
I mean, I think it's more of a battle between two different types of civilization than it is between. I mean, certainly they're more chaotic, the townspeople. They're a mob, but they're, you know, they're chaotic in the way that they're inventing crimes that don't exist. They don't follow like, you know, correct justice system. You know, in the Scorsese short feature, he said that one of the readings is commentary on the Red Scare. You know, sort of witch trials, trying to ferret out scary people and not really having any good reason. And so in that way, it's, you know, two sort of different types of society. Vienna would be a more strictly capitalist way in that she figures out, you know, a way to make money that people don't approve of, but she doesn't feel like she should be judged for, you know, because she does it through the free market, I guess. And they're a more fascistic society, and like there's a certain way that people should be, and they're trying to, you know, Vienna represents a threat because she doesn't follow their social mores, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess where it also differentiates is that the sheriff, who is normally sort of the pacifying force, is kind of he's sort of in the pocket of the bloodthirsty mob for most of the film. He's kind of meek and in the background too. He's kind of just being pushed around by, you know, this group that wants to impose their will. So the sheriff is actually he's not a good guy for most of the film.
I think the reading of...
I mean, that happens in other Western films as well, but I mean, certainly the sheriff being the hero is common, but there's lots of times, there's plenty of examples where the sheriff is either a coward or a sellout.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, like, for this time, what were some Westerns where they... I mean, because I can't think of any kind of before this. I could think of plenty after.
Well, I don't have a list of the chronology of Westerns in front of me, so I can't really tell
Yeah,
you.
that's it would be good. I guess that would be something to look up. But I think, as far as I can remember, like, of the big Westerns that happened...
Yeah, I think definitely it would be more rare before this because the Hays Code had a lot of stipulations about minimizing the amount you could make the law and like legal entities look bad. Like, some film noirs try and get around it as much as they can, but I definitely have read about a lot of film noir and other films having to be edited or reshot or the script re-edited because they depicted law enforcement in too negative a light. So I think that this, at least as part of the time period and the being less strict, sort of shows that a little bit, because definitely Emma and Mr. MacGyver's I can't say his name without laughing because I think of the show. But,
well, it's not actually MacGyver's. It's his name is actually McIvers.
But they pronounce it MacGyver's every time in the movie.
Yeah, they do. Well, yeah, but I was reading it. I was like, oh, okay, they're just kind of pronouncing it funny in the film.
Right.
But yeah, Mr. MacGyver's, and he builds a bomb out of chewing gum and a clothespin.
I guess another way that it's different than certainly Westerns of the time, and maybe all Westerns, is that the women drive the action, which is, the most Westerns is a battle between men with women as love interest, and it kind of flips the script here, and it's a battle between two women with, two men serving as competing love interests, and they're not it's not their fight them in. Like, they have a fight too, but it's like not. It's not driving the plot of the film so much.
How did people feel about Mercedes McCambridge's character?
I mean, I have no idea. If you're asking about the Scorsese thing, he didn't mention specifically why people reacted badly. Just that it didn't seem like a Western and that they laughed at it, apparently.
Yeah. No, when I said people, I just meant you two.
Oh, okay.
You two people. How did you two people feel about Mercedes McCambridge?
I kind of like that she is. It's like every time we see her, she is kind of frothing at the mouth to, just go kill. Like, she always wants to go kill somebody. Like, every time you see her, she's like, "We gotta get them now. We gotta go kill them. They were responsible."
I mean, I thought, like, in terms of, like, pairing, that she and Joan Crawford worked well together, and that they had a similar level of, like, not just, like, emotional intensity, but, like, facial stretching intensity, I guess. Their acting was, like, very, like I was saying Shakespearean before, but maybe that's not the right word for it. Like, theatrical, I guess. Like, they acted in a way like they thought they were on a stage, where they had to make sure that, like, the back rows of the theater got it, like they weren't in a movie. And I mean, I thought, like, the two of them playing off of each other, worked, but sometimes when one of them was with someone else, it was, I don't want to say that it was bad, because I didn't feel that way when I was watching. I wasn't like, this is bad, but sometimes it was a little dissonant, someone acting in a smaller, more subtle way than Joan Crawford or Mercedes. Was that her name?
Yeah.
Was it Mercedes?
Yeah, Mercedes McCambridge is her name.
Mercedes McCambridge, they were very big in their acting, and that wasn't 100% across the board with all the actors.
I think it's very interesting that she is so kind of diminutive, and if she wasn't screaming for most of the movie, you would think that she would be kind of like a meek character. I don't know, just looking at her, like, physical stature, like, she's very small, and she's very I don't know, I would almost say, like, I don't know if mousy is the right word, but she definitely doesn't look like somebody who would want to pick a fight. And if you didn't see her, being so intense all the time, you probably wouldn't think that she would be that type of person. But I kind of like that she is this little ball of contradiction. I don't know.
I would say I definitely agree with, in terms of how tiny she is, and it's pretty good as far as casting to make her seem so big. I part of the reason I ask is that, I mean, sometimes I liked it, and then other times my feeling on Nicholas Ray, based on other movies that I've seen by him, is that he tends to be a pretty humanistic director generally. Like, this is the first movie I think I've seen with him where someone is, like, very clearly a villain and, like, kind of denied, like, a chance to be that human. Like, what's driving her feels like it's intended to be unrelated, fairly unrelatable, and that the audience is supposed to sort of really hate Mercedes McCambridge because she's so ruthless, and I thought that was interesting compared to his other movies that tend not to vilify characters.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying there, but at the same time, I do get kind of a vulnerability from her because of how...
Yeah, I don't hate her.
Yeah, I get a vulnerability from her just because of the amount of sort of anger she seems to have. It's like there's definitely some pain behind it. There's definitely some I guess some sort of slight that she feels, that that sort of is the undercurrent of all her anger. It definitely feels like she's hurting in some way, and that's how she's dealing with it, is just being, she's just taking it out the best way that she knows how. And so I think it's probably due to the fact that she, I know in that little clip that we watched of Martin Scorsese, he talked about the psychosexual themes, and I think that maybe what he's talking about there is that character, sort of being maybe, I don't know if sex deprived is the right word, but like just having that desire and having it denied, and that kind of being bottled up inside of her, and that being what causes her anger so much. I don't know if that's, I don't know if either of you got that same feeling from it.
Sexual repression.
Yeah, something like that. And I know that, I mean, that seems like certainly a good reason for somebody to be angry.
Two things. Yeah, I kind of agree with that latter part of what you're saying there, and it explains sort of her hatred of Vienna anymore, because Vienna's okay with her sexuality, I guess, in a much more straightforward way. And I guess one of the implications about how she got the money for building the bar saloon is that maybe she prostituted herself out. It's not said explicitly, but everyone is like, we know how you got that money or whatever, a lot of the times in the movie. But I sort of disagree with the first part of what you're saying, which is that I didn't hate her. Maybe audiences did, but I wasn't sympathetic to her either. To me, she was like a little bit like the main character in Graveyard of Honor, and that she was basically crazy from the beginning of the film to the end of the film, and she was just wild. She was like a force. I didn't really interpret her as like a human character, which is obviously not humanistic, but it also I didn't see her as villainous either. I saw her as kind of like a whirlwind. She was just like super destructive. I thought her strongest character moment is she's won, in a sense. She's going to get Turkey and Vienna to hang, and yet she still knocks over the not chandelier, but the all the.
Yeah,
it's like a chandelier,
like
except for it has
big chandelier with the.
Except for it has actual, oil lanterns in it, and lights the place on fire. And there's literally no reason for her to do that. I mean, in fact, it's probably, destructive. The townspeople could take it over if Vienna is killed, and, make money off of it. Or she could. Maybe she would be able to get to buy it somehow. From the estate, and it's just like a really just chaotic, destructive moment, and brutal. And so like I said, I didn't see her as villainous, because to me she was just like, she was like an embodiment of entropy or something, but I also didn't see her as sympathetic.
I think that interpretation actually sort of makes sense in terms of reading the film as being like against the conservative kind of tide. I know Nicholas Ray was really involved with socialist activism in the 30s, and it's only because of luck and him knowing a couple of really big head honcho people that he avoided being blacklisted during this time period. But and then a lot of his movies have a kind of undercurrent of just really huge rage against the conservatives' ideals of the 50s. So reading her as being kind of a just representative of the mass tide of just nonsensical destruction of personal ideology and whatnot that the Red Scare represented would kind of all tie in together.
What did you guys think of how it was shot?
I guess I would say I enjoy how long some of the sequences are, because it seems like that first sequence where he he comes into the saloon lasts for a really, really long time. And it's, normally you'll get like, oh, here's a scene that's going to set up how this character is, and here's a scene that's going to set up how this character is. And they sort of just do everybody all together at once in this big, long sequence that ends with him, having a fist fight with Ernest Borgnine outside. And it's crazy because it begins with him sort of coming in and meeting everybody, and it ends with him like having a fist fight with somebody outside while Joan Crawford talks to the dancing kid about what's up and what she plans to do, and what he plans to do about being accused of murder. And in between there's this whole big thing where you meet all the the townspeople who are angry with her. And I thought that sequence was really, I thought it was really great, because normally those scenes will like cut off and it'll be some sort of jump in time, but it's just for this one continuous time flow for most of the beginning of the film. And I like that. It wasn't like one shot, but it was very cohesive, I guess. It made everything feel a little more real, even though the film really isn't going for realism in that sense, I guess.
Basil?
I mean, I don't have anything directly to add to what Patrick just said, although I agree that it's the movie feels much shorter than it is, because it seems like almost all the sequences are just huge chunks and everything kind of gets going really quickly. So I was surprised that, there were a couple times when I checked how long I'd been watching the movie, and I was like, oh, I'm an hour and 10 minutes into it already. That seems surprising. But as far as like the actual shooting, like the cinematography, I thought it was really weirdly beautiful and kind of very strangely surreal. Like there's certain points where it seems like what time of day it is changes pretty depending on which shot. Like there's one shot where she and Sterling Hayden are eventually standing on a bridge, but when they walk up to the bridge it looks like midday, but then when it cuts to a close-up of them standing on the bridge, it's like sunset and the sky is bright red, and it doesn't match, but it all kind of like gave the movie a strangely dreamy feeling. And there's another really weird shot where when they confront her about Turkey, and they're all dressed in their funeral garb, and like Emma Small's in the center, and there's like a weird shot that's like from below, and it's just like this triangle of faces and then the chandelier above them, and it just like, it's a really creepy, weird shot. I don't know, just things like that gave the movie a very strange vibe compared to a lot of the westerns that I've seen, even something like Rio Bravo that was made right around the same time.
Yeah, I think Rio Bravo is actually, was it about 5 years later?
Really?
Yeah, I thought Rio Bravo was 1960, but I'm not positive.
I think it's like 59 or 60.
It's all the same. It's the 50s.
Yeah,
pretty much anything before 1983, when Basil and I were born, is essentially, it's all the same year.
I was going to say, this came out, I think, like a year before The Searchers, I think was the big, like king of the westerns around that same time.
Which I still have not seen.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Reuben?
That sequence, the one where they catch Turkey and they're convincing, before when the townspeople come in and when they catch Turkey and when they convince Turkey to sell out Vienna, that sequence is sort of what sold me on the film aesthetically. The scene where they come in, I can't remember if the shot is like slowly dialing in or not, and she's like, Vienna is changed into like this white dress for some reason, or white blouse, and she's sitting there playing at the piano.
It looks like a wedding dress.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. That's what I thought visually. Is she's in a wedding dress and she's playing the piano, and it's like this. I mean, it's a definite juxtaposition with what we know about her as a character, that she's in this, Puritan virginal wedding look, and then she's also playing this really somber song. I don't really have anything to say about that moment in terms of like unpacking it thematically or anything like that, except for that it was really, really powerful for me. Like the rest of the film that I enjoyed, but basically starting from when they walk in, the sort of arc and the comparison between those two characters, her in the white playing the somber piano, and then when they leave, Emma in the black just completely losing it and shooting down the light fixture and setting the saloon on fire, was just a great scene to me back when in the early days of our participation of LiveJournal, when we were doing those movie moments lists. Her playing the piano would definitely be up there in my movie moments list.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed that sequence too, and I really enjoyed her dialogue that she has with I can't remember it. I don't think it's just with Emma. I think it's also with Mr. MacGyver's and the sheriff as well. She's sort of browbeating them.
The way she stands up for herself is really powerful and resonant.
Yeah, she's sort of pushing them back with her words rather than actually drawing a gun or anything like that. And I also even like the guy that tries to step in. I think his name is Tom. I think he's the cook at the saloon. He steps in and tries to help her, and he gets shot, and she comes to him as he's dying, and she says, "Why'd you do it?" And he says, "Well, everybody's looking at me now, aren't they?" Or something like that. Like it's like, oh, he's he kind of feels important now, even though he's dying. But it's a really kind of noble thing, and I was like, oh, that's kind of sad. He finally feels important, and now he's got to die.
Oh, wow. I knew I recognized him. I just looked it up. That was John Carradine, who played Old Tom. So that's sort of like a weird Nicholas Ray being kind of referential, since he was super famous for a bunch of different John Ford westerns. Yeah,
was John Carradine in The Grapes of Wrath?
Yeah, and he plays the preacher in The Grapes of Wrath, I think.
Yeah, he's the weird scarecrow guy who gets killed in The Grapes of Wrath, right?
Yeah, and then
I say scarecrow because that's what he looks like, not because he had anything to do with scarecrows.
Yeah,
right.
His name is Casey, I think is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he's also in Stagecoach and a whole bunch of John Ford movies. So that could be...
I don't know why. It's been forever since I've seen Stagecoach, but there are pieces, and I liked it more when I saw it, but there are pieces of Grapes of Wrath that I remember better, even though it's been just as long.
I've actually been meaning to rewatch it because I haven't seen it since I was probably 15 or 16. Whenever
Stagecoach or Grapes of Wrath?
Grapes of Wrath. Whenever the AFI greatest movies list came out, I was like, I'm going to watch all these. And
me too.
With the Grapes of Wrath. And
I remember watching it.
I think I watched
I actually had to watch
40 of them.
Class in high school.
Yeah, me too. We watched it to compare it to having read it.
Yeah.
Wow, you read much better books than I did. I just read Romeo and Juliet.
I had to read Ethan Frome. That was a terrible book.
I had to read both of those, so... I don't know, is there anything thematically in Johnny Guitar that anyone wants to comment on that hasn't been commented on before? I mentioned to Patrick when we watched it, although I guess I've talked more than I expected, that I really liked the movie, but that I didn't have that much to say or to think about it. There was just one of those movies that was really strong emotionally, but not... I didn't have an intellectual, unpacking that was obvious to me to do.
I thought there was really interesting. There's a really early scene with her, with Vienna and Johnny Guitar, where she kind of justifies what she did, and I thought she used some really interesting language that seemed very out of place and progressive for the era, where she talks about how a guy can do whatever he wants, basically, just kill people, steal whatever, but as long as he has his pride, he's still a man, and people will still look at him and think of him as a man. But if a woman does even one small slip up, suddenly she's lost her right to become a woman or be seen as a woman. And I thought that was a really interesting comment to be making.
Yeah, I really liked a lot of their interplay, their dialogue. And again, going back to what Scorsese said about the psychosexual themes, like their whole, trying to remember exactly how it goes, but their whole dialogue about wanting to just erase the past 5 years like they never happened, and him saying that it's your wedding day now, and you can come away and you don't have to worry about all that anymore. They're, I guess, playing on that, just to sort of, I guess, almost like exploring a kind of fantasy world between the two of them in those scenes together. I liked that their relationship, had that going for it in the movie, and they were both willing to kind of explore that possibility that things could have been different.
To what Basil was saying, I agree that it was like ahead of its time and progressive, and yet somehow when I think about like feminist films, in a way, some of my favorite feminist films are from the 40s and 50s. Like, I feel like we get it way more wrong these days
right.
than they used to. Like, I just like Preston Sturges, Nicholas Ray, and what I've seen of Max Ovals too. Just I think women directors, didn't exist back then, pretty much. And women understand women and are making good films about women, like Claire Denis. But the men no longer usually make good films about women anymore. And Billy Wilder, Preston Sturges, I think they captured women a lot better than what most men are doing these days.
Kenji Mizoguchi is another good example.
Yeah, I haven't seen but one of his films. I didn't feel like it was enough to judge him on, but I believe it. And, we say that it's ahead of their time, but it seems like something about that era, there was more, I don't know if it was viewers wanting that or just auteurs interested in it or what, but I definitely think of my favorite women in film are like Jean Harrington, the woman in the earrings of Madame de,
Barbara
women from the
Stanwyck.
40s. Actresses too. I just, far prefer Barbara Stanwyck to someone like Meryl Streep.
Sorry, Meryl.
I mean, she's okay. I don't really find her skill set to be that interesting to me personally.
Right. I agree. Not gonna get a strong argument from me. But
so I don't know. Maybe that's something to explore. We could do a very special podcast on our favorite women characters as directed by men at some point.
Naomi Malone.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, that's a modern one.
Yeah, that's true. Exception
Definitely
to every
consider
rule.
it. Yeah, 80s and past to be modern.
Yeah. So, I guess what do you
But I
think
thought
about?
that it was really. I was going to say, to sort of cap the thing we were talking about, I think it's sort of interesting and insightful commentary because the Sterling Hayden Vienna conflict kind of arises with her being like, hey, this stuff happened, this is what I had to do, I am going to tell you about it and you're going to listen to me. And he's like, no, I'm not going to listen to you, I don't want to hear that stuff. And then he finally resorts to, let's pretend it just didn't happen, it was a bad dream, we get to go on. And he sort of wins that argument, and I think that there's something sort of sad about that moment for me where I was like, wow, like, this is sort of a commentary on the way that, like, the male-female dynamic is working, where, she starts out very strong initially, but once he insists enough, he kind of pulls her into his fantasy and she gives up, essentially.
I agree that it's a sad moment, but I think there's kind of two levels to it. Like, we might call it a diegetic level and a non-diegetic level, which is that in the world of the film, he wins the argument, and she agrees to pretend like it never happened. But I think that the audience in that moment should come away with feeling like he's kind of a loser for doing that, for kind of pushing her. I think that we judge him for, for not accepting her as her complete and whole self.
Yeah, I watched the movie with Betsy, and she said that she commented that he's sort of like Jay Gatsby in that moment, trying to recapture like this lost thing that and pretend that time has not elapsed. And I think that's a pretty good comparison.
And I was also going to say, I guess there's kind of a conflict also between the men. Between Johnny Guitar and the Dancing Kid, and their conflict is much less, I guess it's much less threatening from an audience standpoint. Like, their whole contest is just kind of like a it's just kind of like a who can like pose the best contest, because they're both kind of just trying to like out manly the other one. They're like, oh, making all these like snide remarks about one another and stuff, and their conflict is really kind of childish and stupid compared to the one that the women are having, which has like actual real ramifications. And the conflict of the men is just kind of like, oh, I can appear more manly to this lady over here.
Yeah, I think something that's like you said, it's like what makes it like really childish and goofy is that one of them has already won. Like, Vienna has already chosen. There's no like they're having their dick measuring contest for like literally it's only for them. And like I think that's another sort of feminist point is that it has nothing to do with her. Like, she keeps telling them to stop it because she's not interested. She's already made her choice. She liked the kid as a fill-in for Johnny Guitar when Johnny Guitar wasn't around, but when the love of her life came back, she didn't care about the kid anymore. And I think that's, again, sort of ahead of its time, pointing out that all this, like the way men see women is a way to impress other men. And so that's what they're fighting about. They're fighting over Vienna because they want to be the cooler dude in the room. And she's like, I don't care. This doesn't mean anything to me. It only means things to you. And so you hit it right on the nail on the head, in my opinion.
I generally think that most of the male characters in this movie are kind of pathetic. I mean, you think about every character in the gang is just kind of a screw-up. And especially, Turkey and... Ernest Borgnine's character is just the heel all the time, and then Mr. Corey is just he's just like, well, I'll go along with whatever you want to do, kid. He's just constantly, just a doormat for everything.
And he's physically ill.
Yeah, he's also
coughing all the time.
Coughing all the time, and Mr. McIvers will basically just do whatever Emma tells him, and the sheriff is always getting pushed around by the people, and so
Johnny Guitar could shoot, but that's about it.
Yeah, he's a good shot.
The whole thing that any man brings to the table is Johnny Guitar is a really good shot.
But like crazy about it, where like when he has a gun, he can't wait to shoot somebody.
Yeah.
To the point where he has to keep guns away from himself, which is a very psychosexual metaphor, I'm sure. Like.
Yeah.
When I got my gun in my hand, I gotta shoot something.
Please, guns, I need to fuck.
Our listening audience can't see this, but I am laughing very hard, but very quietly, because my roommate is asleep.
But speaking of funny things, I laughed really hard at the line when the kid is talking about Ernest Borgnine, and it's like, you're mean to horses. What do you like?
Yeah, he was like, you don't like women, you're like mean to horses.
You're mean to horses.
You don't like smoking, you're mean to horses. Yeah, that was Patrick and I pointed out that line too, because it was like, it was really funny, but it was also a commentary on how the kids saw the world. Like those were the three things that existed in the world: were smoking and drinking and horses.
Well, I was going to point out how their little hideaway is like, it's like a fort that kids would build. It's like, oh, it's behind the secret waterfall. It's like, it's not really that hidden. You just have to go get wet a little bit.
It's also like a really beautiful log cabin.
Yeah.
Like, it's like really homey and nice. Like, it's not like, like broken down or like just like a little cave that they're like built a fire in or something like that. It's like they made like a home, and the four of them, they're like bro home. It's like their frat house. Yeah. Clubhouse is better because it has more kiddish.
Called them bros too at the point when they're like when they get into the fight with Sterling Hayden and they're just like intimidating him, like, oh, what are you gonna do now? Better drink this drink, baby.
Yeah. I forgot about that. They have this stupid little drinking contest.
And he's like, I'm gonna put it in your mouth.
And that's, the same thing to like what I said before, is that like Vienna's like not even really paying attention to that. Like she's off talking to the kid about something, or turkey, I can't remember. Like, whereas like normally in a Western at that period, like the love interest would be like looking anxiously back and forth, like what's gonna happen? But Vienna's like, this is stupid. Which, just again goes to show that it's just for the men. It has nothing to do with the women. Nicholas Ray, sensitive dude.
Yeah. Have you seen Rebel Without a Cause?
I have, but not in a very long time. I saw it in the first film class that I ever took, which was my summer at Duke TIP program. That would have been summer after sophomore year of high school. So I remember discussing it, and we talked about flipping gender roles and how the dad is like wearing an apron and cleaning the house and cooking and stuff, and the love triangle between James Dean and Natalie Wood and what's that actor's name? Yeah, Sal Mineo.
Yeah, I think that not to get too deep into it, but I think it does have also very odd things to say about masculinity and how ridiculous it is. So Nicholas Ray seems pretty interested in that concept.
Yeah, so that would have been like 14 years ago that I saw it, and I remember kind of disliking it, and it was probably because I was totally wrapped up in traditional ideas of masculinity at the time. I was probably like, this is goofy and weird. My favorite movies were like Fight Club.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think we all remember those days.
Did you ever like Fight Club, Basil?
I did like Fight Club. I bought it on DVD with like that weird, where it looks like it's wrapped in the special edition. It looked like it was wrapped in like
I have the same one.
Cardboard.
Yeah, I remember that one. They had all the negative press as well as the good press written inside of it. For some reason, I don't know. I kind of liked that though. I kind of liked that.
Oh, design. I still like that.
Yeah, that design. I was like, oh, that's interesting. They put the negative press in here too.
That's all they have on the Space Ghost, the first volume of Space Ghost Coast to Coast. It's like this. It's like all the quotes are like, "This show is unwatchable." It's like this is an intellectual exercise with no audience. Like those are the quotes that are on.
I remember when Lost Highway came out. David Lynch had 2 thumbs down printed on the poster.
That's something we need to bring back.
I bet David Lynch loves Nicholas Ray. Can anyone confirm that?
I'm sure that's true. It has to be. Yeah. They have similar crazy awesome hair.
I feel like there's I've never seen a picture of Nicholas Ray.
He has pretty crazy hair.
I feel like there's a direct line between Jode Crawford's Vienna and Isabella Rossellini's character in Blue Velvet, and Lady Macbeth. They're all just like the same line of women, like Lady Macbeth and Shakespeare, Vienna, and Johnny Guitar and Isabella Rossellini's character in Blue Velvet.
I think that's a really
Like, I think essentially if, ratings had been more lax in Johnny Guitar's days, there would have been a scene where Joan Crawford ripped all her clothes off and ran screaming through the room, just like Isabella Rossellini.
He put his disease in me! Okay, well, do we have anything else to say about Johnny Guitar?
I didn't have this to say.
Yeah,
all the stuff
feel
that I
like
said, I really,
the amount that
I didn't expect to say this much.
I was kind
But
of dreading this. I was like, I just finished this movie. What am I gonna have to say about this?
But that's why I like, why I came up with this idea. I like talking to you guys because this always happens to me. After I saw the Justin Bieber movie, one of the first ones that Basil and I did this for, it was like I had like literally one thought about the movie, and we talked about it for like 45 minutes on GChat.
Google, bringing people together.
I guess I need to watch the Justin Bieber movie now. I'm the only one that hasn't seen it.
This podcast brought to you by Google.
That's true.
Yeah.
We're doing it on Google Hangouts. We're mentioning GChat, so if Google wants to give us some money to discuss movies, we will take it.
I rented the movie on YouTube, a Google property.
We are stumping hard for Google.
And I have an Android phone too, so some more Google product placement.
And before and after we do the podcast, we get to watch crazy YouTube videos. So it's great. Google Hangouts. Good job, bros.
All right, so this has been Loose Canons, episode 2, with Basil, Patrick, and me, Reuben. Thank you for listening. Bye. Bye.